Hey there guys, it's Craig, aka Poopy with O3 Drop. I'm here, freshly cue-balled, to come and talk about the new best budget card in Flesh and Blood. I was really excited to see this card in the Hunted spoilers, and there's a reason why I say it's the best budget card in Flesh and Blood. And I'll start by saying this can be played in any deck. We have a new generic that blocks for 3 and has a very, very powerful effect that is not dependent on hitting. So let's get right into it and talk about Sound the Alarm. Sound the Alarm costs 1 resource. It pitches for a resource. It says when this attacks a hero, they reveal their hand. If an attack reaction card is revealed this way, you may search your deck for a defense reaction, reveal it, then shuffle and put it on top. It attacks for 5, it blocks for 3. Let's talk about why this card is what I consider to be the best budget card. I've already mentioned that it's a generic, but also this card reveals information. That's the most important thing to get out of this card. On play, you get to see your opponent's hand. Now, you experienced players know what you're looking for when you're playing a certain matchup. You're playing against a Dorinthia and you're asking yourself, do they have a Glint the Quicksilver? If not, that's going to affect the way you play your turn. If you're newer to the game, you will lose a lot of games in Flesh and Blood over what is called a knowledge check, just knowing what your opponent can do on their turn. This card is the perfect entry for new players to evaluate turn cycles. There was a great video by Sneeps recently on Flesh and Blood math, and this card gives new players and budget players the ability to win the math game, right? This card allows you to calculate what your opponent can do on their turn so that once you draw a pass and you're set up to win this turn cycle, right? It also allows you to get a defense reaction if they have an attack reaction. So it isn't not just is it great for knowing what they have on their turn, but for finding yourself an answer for it. If you're new to the game, it's very daunting to play cards like Command and Conquer, and you're going to have to spend $90 for a copy. Hopefully that goes down, right? I don't know what they're at right now, but you might look at cards like Wreak Havoc instead. And I'll pull up Wreak Havoc, and we can talk about why Wreak Havoc is not the same. I believe Havoc is spelled with a C. Here we go. Wreak Havoc is a 2-cost, 6 attack. Defense reactions can't be played this chain link. And when it hits, you may turn a card in their arsenal face up, then banish a defense reaction in their arsenal. There's a couple of reasons why Wreak Havoc is not a good budget alternative to CNC, in my opinion. The biggest one being that it blocks for 2. That is a serious downside in Flesh and Blood when every point matters. The other thing is, if they really want to keep a defense reaction, they can block this out much like they would CNC. But if it's not a defense reaction, then the on hit is pretty minor. They just get to know what's in your arsenal. Now, if that's something like a Ravenous Rabble in certain decks, you can just start your turn by playing that. And now all of the information they gained from this card is already on the board. It's gone, right? But Sound the Alarm gives you the information of their entire hand, right? That's huge. And coming from other card games, you might say, well, that's too powerful. But let me put it this way. Because every card in their hand is mobile, you learn exactly one hand because they will use those cards either to block out the Sound the Alarm or to pitch for one of their cards, to pitch for a weapon. So this card is not overly pushed because it is 1 turn cycle's worth of value in knowledge. Maybe you could say gets you knowledge of what might be in their arsenal. Maybe, right? But this card is the perfect amount of power for a budget card. It does what it's supposed to do every time. Because what it's not supposed to do, what it doesn't have to do, is its second clause, which is getting a defense reaction. However, it does have this second clause. It gets better, right? So you can, there is no better deck to get started in this game, in my opinion, than Ira, right? The original Welcome to Wraith entry deck, I think, is to this day the best deck to get into this game. If you have spent money to get into this game and you started with Ira, my hope is that you started with something like Mask of Momentum. Now, I do tend to tell people to stick to generics first, see what you like, and then commit to a class. But I understand with ninjas, Mask of Momentum is the place to start, right? So this can threaten an on-hit of drawing a card, and it also threatens putting a card on top of your deck of your choice, a D-react of your choice. So being able to say, okay, I'm on a combo Ira deck, they have an attack reaction, I'll put a Flick Flack on top of my deck. They're either going to have to give me the rest of their hand, or I'm going to have a Flick Flack in arsenal. That's a very, very powerful move, and this is printed at rare. So we're not breaking the bank to get it. All in all, I think this is one of the best designed cards in Flesh and Blood. I will also, just for a moment, talk about the resource curve. One of the reasons that this is the best generic card in Flesh and Blood on a budget is because it can be played in every single deck, because every single deck at least runs reds. And this is above rate. So at least this is it's better than a 0 for 4, right? It's 2 cards for a 5, right? If you don't have Go Again, you're going to want to throw this instead of just a 4 without Go Again. It's 5, right? 5 is bigger than 4. But you will always have resources to play this card. Maybe not if you're on Vinset, but Vinset isn't exactly a budget or beginner level deck. So the ability to run this in almost every deck, and you could say, what about Guardians? Guardians want things that cost more. But Guardians also do like to run D-reacts, and they like to block. Blocking 3, getting a D-react, those are both good options. But also, if you draw a hand of reds as Guardians, you're a Guardian player, you draw a hand entirely of reds, that feels pretty bad. Are you going to block 1 and then pitch 3 cards to swing Anathos? Or block with 2 cards, pitch 1 of them to send Sound the Alarm, and have knowledge of what your opponent is going to be doing on their next turn cycle, so that you can continuously win turn cycle after turn cycle. In Victor, this isn't the worst threat to put in your deck against red line aggro decks. It still wins a clash against a 4. In KO, this is a 6, right? There are so many uses of this card across many decks. This is a perfect card to introduce a player to the game with. If you want to show them the original Welcome to Wraith heroes, put this in a deck against Dorinthia and watch them learn how to evaluate their opponent's turn, right? This should be in all beginner products because it gives the ability for players to make those connections that they aren't able to make when they don't know the cards. When they're able to send this and have a moment where they're like, wow, I really can figure out what my opponent is up to now. Now, some of us who have been in the game longer, we can do that because we've played long enough. right? I can figure out what a yellow shred might, when my opponent might have a yellow shred, how I need to block if I'm worried about that, right? This gives that ability to new players, and it can be played in any deck. So I truly think that not only is this the best budget card that Flesh and Blood has ever printed, I think this is going to be a staple in every deck that you introduce new players to the game on. You might want to go right for your full high power Zen deck, and maybe this isn't in there. I think it could be, especially if you're playing a Zen deck with D-Reacts. I certainly think this could be, but maybe not for your deck that you're bringing to RTN or to Pro Tour, whatever that is. But when you introduce new players to the game, this is the perfect card to put in their deck. They will always be able to play it at some point in the game, and they will always get value instantly. Whether that's your opponent blocking with 2 cards to prevent a hit, including, this is not covered by 1D React, unless you're playing Flicker Trick. I believe that's the Illusionist one, and I got news for you, not a lot of people are. So this is a perfect card in my estimation of what should be in budget new player decks. I think it absolutely trounces cards like Wreck Havoc, even cards like Humble, which has a different utility and I do think is a very good budget card. But this is, in my opinion, much better design. Losing 1 point of value, but gaining value on 1 less resource and 1 more block. The trade-off is huge. That's all I wanted to go over today, guys. I wanted to just rant a little about how much I love this card, how great I think it is for the game, because you will certainly hear me rant about cards that I don't love as much. But you should know that there are cards that I absolutely adore, I think are perfect, beautiful baby boys or girls, however you would gender this card. Maybe not at all. This one's perfect. And that's all I got today, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.